The largest native land tortoise in North America, that being the desert tortoise, is listed as threatened on the U.S. Endangered Species Act.
Its population has dropped in some areas by as much as 90% since 1980, so it's important to track the tortoise population. Fox 5's Les Crifferton shows us how.
So sometimes I can be walking for a couple minutes before I actually hear something.
Katrina Smith is the senior zoologist at the Springs Preserve. Her daily routine is to take care of all the animals and reptiles that live at the preserve, and one of her favorites is the desert tortoise. Some, like this guy, are usually on display. Then there's Mojave Max and the other tortoises that live in this habitat. With the tortoises spending up to 90% of their time in their burrows, finding them is not easy. Fortunately for Smith, the tortoises are tracked using this small device.
Each tortoise has a transmitter glued to the back of their shells.
Even with the transmitter, the tortoises can be hard to spot because they blend in with the brush in the habitat. So using a receiver and an antenna, Smith shows us how she tracks Mojave Max and the other tortoises.
This is our receiver and our antenna, and what we do is we just dial our receiver into whatever the transmitter number is transmitting at, what frequency it's transmitting at, and then we walk around the habitat and we use this to try to find them.
Smith's job is to maintain the health of the tortoises, so it's important for her to see them weekly. The same system to track the tortoises at the Springs Preserve is used by the U.S. Geological Survey and other federal and state agencies involved in protecting wild tortoises. Smith considers herself lucky.
I'm lucky that I only have to walk around 15 acres to find my tortoises.
Les Crifferton, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
And if you find a desert tortoise in the wild, you should never handle it. It is against the law and could harm the tortoise.